we've been through a lot together. Only this isn't our first rodeo together, so we always have conversations about the future.
When Lincoln Riley was at Oklahoma, he already had a huge standard. He was taking over legendary head coach Bob Stoops, and he would immediately fill that role with 2 Heisman winners, a Heisman finalist, 3 college football playoff appearances, and 5 Big 12 championships, including 2 number 1 overall picks as well. But one fateful morning, he would throw away all of that when he departed for California. In this video, I'm going to try to cover several things, including the issues with Lincoln Riley, why he left, and why Oklahoma fans hate him so much, so stick around if you want to find out that. In Lincoln Riley's second game as a head coach, he would do what many consider to be impossible. He won on the road against Ohio State. Not only was this such a tough game, it was at night against a very good Ohio State team who would finish top 10. This was one of his most impressive wins as a head coach in the 2017 season, which would ended up catapulting them to a college football playoff appearance. Along the way, they had many great games, such as against number 6 TCU, which was the highest attended game in OU football history, then again against TCU in the Big 12 championship. Another game in which they had over 100 combined points at number 11 Oklahoma State, and a 49-27 win against Texas Tech. Also, they won a one-score game against Texas with a potential Heisman moment from Baker Mayfield when he delivered a 60-yard strike to Mark Andrews to take the lead halfway through the fourth quarter. To kind of summarize the 2018, 2019, and 2020 seasons, you can basically know that OU had a good offense. They were always going to have that with Lincoln Riley. The question was, would they be able to make a good defense? And that was always the question with Lincoln Riley. Even today, it's always, he's going to have a great offense that can easily score 40 points a game, but can they hold the opponent to less than 39? That was the key with Lincoln Riley, and it still is to this day. There were many moments when OU's defense seemed to finally be back, such as in 2019, when, I know it's a little hypocritical, they went down 28-3 early with a complete defensive collapse. However, from halfway through the second quarter, the defense would only allow 1 field goal the rest of the way, leading to an OU comeback win. The one thing they had on the current Oklahoma defenses of today is they could force turnovers. They were very good at forcing turnovers in key situations. For example, they had a late interception against Ohio State when they were up 24-13, which ended up in them going up 31-17. Or against Texas in 2020 when, yes, I know they allowed 45 points, which kind of sucks. However, it went into 4 overtimes, and also they got turnovers when it mattered. Final example, against Georgia in the Rose Bowl, defensive end Steven Parker had a clutch scoop and score, which would end up giving them the lead, although it was in vain. That brings us to the 2021 season. This 2021 season was definitely an interesting one for Oklahoma. They started off the year very weak against the team Tulane that would end up going 2-10. Even though this was a rough start, they were considered to be one of the most premier teams in the country, with Spencer Rattler being a Heisman candidate for pretty much the entire offseason. He was a projected Heisman winner, in fact. There were many things wrong with this team, however. Next week, they would win 71-0, and they would get another win against Nebraska. But in OU's Week 4 game against West Virginia, they would struggle. They would only win 16-13, Spencer Rattler being booed tremendously by many of OU's fans, including the students who infamously chanted, "We want Caleb." When Oklahoma played Texas in 2021, there were many things in the line. Both teams, Oklahoma was undefeated. Texas had one loss, which was a 20-point loss at Arkansas. Texas had many exciting players such as Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy, and quarterback Casey Thompson. This game would be a defining moment for both of these teams' seasons, and when Oklahoma, on the first play of the game, allowed a touchdown, it wasn't looking so good for them. Very soon after, they would find themselves down 28-7 when Spencer Rattler, who had been awful this whole game so far, got subbed out for Caleb Williams, who immediately went in and got a 66-yard touchdown run. This wasn't necessarily the turning point in the game, because they still ended up being down 35-19 at one point, but slowly but surely they were coming back. And then when it was 33-41 on 3rd and 20, Caleb Williams threw up an absolute nuke to Marvin Mims, who came down with 1 foot and he would end up catching the ball and the 2-point conversion, so the game would be tied. I might be underselling Caleb Williams in this game, but many people thought that somehow a true freshman would be a Heisman winner. That's how good he was in this game. And then eventually, with mere seconds left, Kennedy Brooks broke through with a 33-yard touchdown run with 3 seconds left that would end up winning them the game. This was pretty big to the 2021 OU team. They would end up getting 3 straight after that, with them having one very kind of rough game against Kansas. Caleb Williams didn't play too great, but he had many moments. That's kind of what Caleb Williams was this year. He was very efficient. He was good most of the time, but when he wasn't, he would make plays when he had to. And that was the great thing about Caleb Williams. Up until Saturday, November 13th, they would go on the road to number 13 Baylor, and with 142 passing yards, Caleb Williams and the Sooners would end up losing 27-14 to the Bears. This one really stung because, yeah, they were undefeated up to this point, but they weren't ranked highly because of that Tulane game and the fact that they had several one-score wins against not exactly quality opponents like Nebraska, West Virginia, and Kansas State. They weren't considered a real title contender, but this definitely hurt them. Then the next week, they'd do their thing against Iowa State, but Caleb Williams was starting to show a bit of a downward trend. After throwing for 400 passing yards against Texas Tech, he had 142 against Baylor, as I said, then 87 against Iowa State. Then came the Oklahoma State game, and this is chapter 3.
Brennan Presley, Dominic Richardson are deep. Seeing the kickoff from Gabe Burkich.
I'll start off this chapter by saying, if you didn't know what the paddle people were, just look it up on Google. Search up OSU paddle people. You'll understand what I'm talking about. Anyways, many people thought this game would be a trap game. Even though Oklahoma State was ranked 7th and Oklahoma was 10th, this gave off the vibe of a trap game. And both teams with a win would clinch a Big 12 championship spot. And who knows? But this game seemed to be a good one. In what would be one of the final bedlams ever, Mike Gundy would get a chance to play Oklahoma at home at night to both knock them out of the Big 12 championship game and their playoff hopes. So, safe to say, it had a pretty big build-up. Anyways, Oklahoma played for the first 3.5 quarters, maybe even just 3 quarters. They played a very complete game. Their offense was playing great. Their defense was playing great. Their defense wasn't playing great. They're playing acceptable, which is a higher standard. It's better than what Oklahoma fans were used to. So when OU was up 33-24, it looked pretty good, especially considering the defense was coming off getting a safety. But all good things must come to an end, and very shortly after that, OU would find themselves with a 4th and 10, and Caleb Williams would end up being 5 yards short. Luckily, though, OU still had 3 timeouts, so they would get the ball back, and Caleb Williams, with more magic than I've seen in a while, had a incredible run to get them into Oklahoma State, deep in Oklahoma State territory. But with no timeouts and an Oklahoma State defense, it's a lot of seniors, a lot of people who have grown up as Oklahoma State fans, a lot of people who pretty much dreamed of this exact moment, a chance to upset Oklahoma at home. They got the job done. And on 4th and medium, Caleb Williams would be trapped, as Chris Fowler would say, and he was sacked. And it definitely hurt a lot, but, there's always next season, right? I mean, Caleb Williams is clearly a budding superstar. But, oh, what's this? Oh yeah, forgot that's the whole reason I'm making this video. Lincoln Riley, the next morning, without telling anybody, would get on a private jet and fly to Los Angeles, where he would take over as USC's head coach. Yeah, everyone at Oklahoma was pretty mad. Everyone at USC was probably pretty happy. Caleb Williams hadn't entered the transfer portal yet, but he would end up doing so after the Alamo Bowl against Oregon. So, now we're going to answer some questions. Why do Oklahoma fans hate Lincoln Riley? Well, it doesn't help your reputation when you have probably your most talented team with their most talented quarterback. I don't know if he's more or less talented than Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, or Jalen Hurts, but he's definitely up there. Those are some pretty high bars. But to leave like that in the middle of the night for basically no reason and then lying to the media afterwards, yeah, it makes things bad. But fast forward to the modern day. OU's trending up and USC's trending down. So who ended up winning this? Well, I think it's pretty even. Pretty much entirely because USC had Caleb Williams for 2 years and OU's had a revolving door of quarterbacks. But yeah, and some unfortunate injuries. Seems pretty even, so I would love to see OU and USC play somehow. I think if USC went onto the road against Oklahoma, against Lincoln Riley, that would probably be the best college football atmosphere ever. Tell me why I'm wrong in the comments. Yeah, you'll understand real quick. Who knows? So that's all I gotta say. This video took me a little while to make. Had to gather some facts. It takes a while, but nothing more. So make sure to like and subscribe, and see you on the flip side, the other side. I don't know. That's corny. We'll see. Anyways, see ya.